Hello again, and welcome to Along the Rock, our podcast that pays homage to the people of the Sauk Valley, and the river that runs through it. I'm Mark Morris. I'll be your host. We're going to be talking about the new Life Lutheran Church and the hospice. Jackie Donaldson is the executive director of the hospice, and these two, Kathy and Karen, are both church members and quilters. So let's start with you, Jackie, and just tell us how the hospice got involved with these two ladies and a whole bunch more.
Well, this I really don't know. It was before my time, but I do know that these lovely quilters have brought us over 1,000 quilts since 2017. I'm not sure how that started. Are you all aware of that?
Well, we've been quilting at New Life since 2010, but it was in 2017 one of our members did have a need for hospice, and we were looking forward to having a home hospice, because of her need. And then also one of our quilters, her daughter worked at a hospice up in Madison, and she was talking with her, and we got this idea that we would donate quilts, for especially, I think it was for the open house in the very beginning. Okay. And it progressed from there, but I did go to the open house when it opened, and the quilts did make a difference in the very comfort and inviting.
Yes.
Anything you'd like to add down at the end there?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay. All right. Well, quilting has always been fascinating to me. Number one, because I love quilts. I love the way they look. And as I told you before we started taping, my mother used to pick up quilts at secondhand shops, and she'd bring them home. And we didn't have a lot of money at that time, and so we used them as blankets and comforters and everything else that you use a quilt for. And I always loved them because they looked so old-fashioned, little house on the prairie, if you will, and they were very comforting, at least to me, and I'm assuming my sister and brothers too. But quilting is a lot more than just putting pieces of cloth together. It's a social event, isn't it? And I think you do a lot of Karen do a lot of quilting at home, but also at the quilt headquarters, if you will. So at home, I guess it's more of a single effort. But then you get together with all the other women, and you sit around a big table and cure all the world's troubles, right?
That is exactly right. Yes. And a quilt is a lot more than just fabric and thread put together.
Right.
It can be an actual representation of somebody's preference in color or their preference in pattern, but it can be a tangible representation of a part of their life. And to be able to share that with people who are in such a vulnerable position in their life, and that what we get to do, which is enjoyable for us, we just have so much fun, and it's so rewarding that we can do something and have it represent what it does represent for the hospice house. We've gotten some very touching thank you notes from people whose families have received these quilts, and it is just remarkable what they will tell us, how meaningful it has been. And Kathy and I each have a representation of that.
Oh, you've got some examples.
Yes,
okay.
We have an example.
Go ahead, Kathy.
This one is, Dear Quilters, I think I've already sent a note of thanks shortly after my husband passed away, but I need to share with you how much it means to me now that he's gone. It is in his lift chair, so I see it so many times each day. He was unable to see it as he was in a coma in the hospital, but everybody who came to visit him remarked on how neat it was, and to bring it back and so thank you all. It is a wonderful thing that you do for those of us losing a special person. And we also do, we try to do red, white, and blue quilts. We can't always keep up, but we try to, so that the veterans get
course.
And I know my neighbor, her husband got one of those, and she has it sitting in her chair, and it reminds her of his service to the country and how special he was.
And about him personally.
But yes, yeah.
No doubt, no doubt.
So, you have
Okay. Karen, do you have an example of one of those
It's
thank you letters too?
Another example, it says, to New Life Lutheran, my mom was recently at hospice where she received a beautiful quilt. She was a gardener, and the border had plants, flowers, and pots on it that she loved. I just wanted to thank you and anyone who helped make such a lovely keepsake for the family. And so it's just nice to know that, I mean, it happens that people sometimes will get a quilt and it represents something that they have had an interest in for their life.
Which
And
leads
it's
me to my next question. Some of this material must come from the families themselves, the families of the deceased or hospice patients.
A lot of times, that's where we've gotten a lot of our material that we use for the quilt tops. And we have a storage area, and we've had expanded into the clothes closet. But it's really, we're able to coordinate the fabric more. But these people, you know, especially, and sometimes even the client or the patient will say, you know, they've got quilting and they want them to bring it, and they know that it'll be very comforting to someone. And all of our quilts say Jesus loves you on the back of them, and they're very, very comforting for the people.
Yeah, it's a nice touch.
We have another example too that I'd like to share.
Sure.
We have a gentleman, a man that was coming and wanted to donate fabric. His wife had been a resident at the hospice house, and she ultimately passed, and so they were given a quilt. Well, she also was a quilter.
Okay.
And must have had big plans. I mean, she died, she was only in her 60s, so I think she had big plans for when she was going to have free time to use the fabric she had. He made he wanted to donate the fabric that she had in her stash. That's what we affectionately call our supply of fabric. We all have at home.
Of course.
And he made at least 4 trips over there with a truck. Wow. With boxes and totes of fabric. And there were some quilts in there that were already started. And so we would try to finish them if we could. But that's what prompted us overtaking part of the coat closet, because it was so much fabric. He didn't bring it all at once, fortunately. He brought it like maybe 3 weeks to 4 weeks between deliveries, but he would drive right up and say, I have fabric.
So she was really serious.
Very, very.
And maybe did that more, less as a hobby and more as an avocation, I guess.
We have, with all the fabric that we have, you know, like there's about 3 or 4 that actually do sewing there. But the rest of them, a lot of them aren't even quilters. They can tie a knot, so they do that. And one of the things that it's just amazing, you know, they're able to spend time, and it's a social time, and they can. But we also take a break, you know, because some of the ladies they're in walkers or whatever, and so we have to take a break. So it's a social time, and so anybody who can tie a knot is welcome to come.
Which, of course, is part of the process, which I didn't know myself.
Because I guess, like I was saying before, maybe ours are called more of a comforter than an actual quilt, because they're not hand quilted.
So are they thicker as a result, like a lot of comforters are? Or?
They're, you know, we order batting, and we get it in bulk. It comes, it's like a foot wide, and by the time we open it, it's 3 feet, and it expands, and we can get about 26 quilts out of that. And so it's much, you know, cheaper than buying a unit for each quilt. We couldn't afford to do it if we had to do it that way, but so they're quite thick, you know. So.
And if someone were to want to learn how to do that, or just practice tying knots, How would they just have to come on a Wednesday night and
Morning.
Wednesday morning?
Yeah,
Okay.
Wednesday
Yeah,
morning,
I
9 to
Assumed it was
12.
in the evening.
Oh, no, 9 to 12.
Is
Okay.
it every Wednesday?
Well, unless there's snowstorm.
Yeah.
We did cancel for a snowstorm, or if there's,
Right.
something else maybe going on or whatever, but it's mostly and we average about 15 women. Not everybody comes every week, but, so it's,
Now, in my ignorance, I would say, okay, you've got a big table full of women around the edges, and it would seem something like that would take weeks to put together. You say you do how
Well,
many in an evening? Or
the tops are pretty much done. Karen puts together packets, and people take them home, and some of the women do them right there at quilting. And so the mostly what we do is put the backing and the batting and the top together and tie them. And then there's one of the gals does the binding. So that's basically, and we probably have 20 or 30 quilt tops and backs ready to go. So
Wow.
Okay, so that speeds the process quite a bit. Let's get back to the social aspect of this. And pardon my rudeness, is there any wine involved?
whining
No,
or
no.
wine?
Not whining, wine, drinking. I mean, it's a social event.
Yeah, usually around 10:30, we'll take our coffee break.
Oh, okay.
Snacks.
People will just bring whatever. It can be baked goods or fruit or some snacky thing.
Girl Scout cookies right now.
Girl Scout cookies, popcorn, just whatever they happen to have. And then it's a full smorgasbord. We don't say, well, today I'll bring this, or, next week I'll bring this, or whatever. We don't plan it.
It's a surprise.
It's a surprise. And some days that counter is just packed. Cheese and crackers.
Yeah.
It's just an assortment of things, and then people can take what they want. And we usually prepare 2 pots of coffee, and so we sit around and solve the world's problems and the best we can.
Just like some of the older men do when they go to McDonald's or parties. Find their regular table and solve the world's troubles.
It's interesting because some of the women, they have their own little niche. Karen she cuts a lot of the squares and the fabric. She loves to coordinate. And there's one gal that just started joining us now. Because we usually, Karen does. Why don't you tell about your packets that you put together?
Well, it just kind of happened. I went in that direction to be the cutter of the fabric because, sometimes we're working with fabric pieces that are less than half a yard. Sometimes our fabric pieces are many, many yards long.
Right.
So I just kind of went in that direction because of the gals that come that don't sew. And so really the time of the quilts is where they work best. But people can float from area to area, and if anybody ever wanted to do the cutting, they could. But nobody's asked if they could take over my job, so which is fine.
Is that the hardest or the?
It's not work at all. But when we have the closet with fabric in, you get to walk in and you say, or you don't say it, but you can walk in and you think, well, I wonder what this would look like. So you pull this fabric off the shelf and another piece, and you just start cutting, and then we make 10 squares that are 8.5 inches square.
Okay.
We pin them in the corner, so those 10 squares stay together. When we get 7 of those groups that will coordinate, or that we think will coordinate, we've never seen an ugly one yet.
It's all personal taste.
I've never seen an ugly one.
So when we get enough of those stacks of fabric together that are pinned together that we think would go together into a quilt, 7 packs of that will make a 7 by 10 square quilt. And those go in a Ziploc baggie. And then they're labeled 7 across, 10 down for people to take. And they can put them together however they like. It doesn't matter. And so some people take them home. I don't think there's anybody that sits and sews on them Well, Joyce, maybe.
Yeah. Well, then we also have we've gotten material, and they're like 2.5-inch squares. One of the ladies made a quilt using, I don't know how many quilts she made of that, that was
Pretty
tedious.
small, yeah.
And then there's strips, so there's a lot of variety, and some of them, there's 4 machines that we have that we use, and that were donated. And so these ladies, some of them, that's what they like to do. They like to kind of do their own thing, and they'll say, one of the gal's daughters come, and she's the one that puts our material and coordinates puts all the blues and the yellows and different colors together.
Uh-huh.
And so you can just walk in there, and maybe they'll be sitting there, and they'll say to this gal, can you show me some blues that would go with this or something? So, it's
some idea,
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Any room for volunteers? Additional volunteers.
There's always room. There's always room. We have one table that is it's 60 inches wide. It's just big enough to tie the quilts, and then we have a smaller table that if we get, sometimes we'll have, if we get behind of something, when we do our craft fair in the fall, sometimes we get kind of behind and we want to make sure we have enough for hospice. We'll have a marathon. And then we extend over lunch, and so we have to have lunch, and then so then we can get a couple tables going. Sure. And then we get a lot of extra women coming in just for that day, or people can come in just for a couple hours, because people
take a look and try it out.
Yeah. So it's comforting for us to know that our talent can be, shared.
Sure.
And it means
do some
people.
good. Yeah.
So.
And I feel blessed. I get to see the results of it.
That's
the
my next
people that
question,
love
Jackie.
it.
How important is this to your hospice operation?
I will tell you, it just means a world to our patients and their families. When their loved one dies and they get to take that last piece home, they're like, "This is for us," and we're like, "Yes, it was made for you by New Life," and they are just so pleased with it. The last thing their loved one was comforted with. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
More confirmation that what you're doing is important, and probably in some families even vital.
I know one family, there were like 3 or 4 girls, and they were going to share the quilt. One have it 3 months, another one have it 3 months, so they could have the memories of their mom.
Oh, sure.
Because we get, like I said, there were just a couple of the letters that we got, but they're very,
very touching.
Very touching, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you all coming up. We expected a warm day, and not quite so warm.
No, that's okay.
It'll get there. The church is warm.
Yeah.
By the way, that's, if you missed it in the beginning, New Life Lutheran Church. And what's the address?
702 West Lynn Boulevard.
Okay.
In Sterling.
Yeah, Sterling.
Okay, very good. And Wednesday mornings.
Wednesday morning.
9 to 12. Okay, very good. All right. Jackie, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, ladies. I don't think I'll try to reach Karen down there, but yeah,
Fist bump.
good idea. And I'd also like to thank our crew here for putting this program together on a regular basis. I'm Mark Morris. Hope you can join us next time along the rock.